The 2026 FIFA World Cup will be the largest tournament in football history. 48 teams, 104 matches, and 6 million fans attending games in person across North America. But at the center of it all are the stadiums. The colossal arenas built to host the biggest sporting event on Earth. From cutting-edge NFL arenas repurposed for the beautiful game, to Mexico's historic venues carrying footballing legacy, and to arenas facilitating Canada's debut as a World Cup host. These are not just football venues, they're stories of scale, money, architecture, and a piece of history. On July 19, 2026, the most watched sporting event on the planet will take place in East Rutherford, New Jersey. The MetLife Stadium sits 5 miles west of Manhattan in the Meadowlands Sports Complex. Opened in 2010, the stadium has been home to the NFL's New York Giants and New York Jets ever since. It holds 82,000 people and cost $1.6 billion to build, making it the most expensive stadium ever privately financed at the time. The stadium hosted the FIFA Club World Cup final in 2025, and in a few weeks' time, it will host the biggest game on the planet, the World Cup final. FIFA's decision to award the final to MetLife came as a surprise to many, including local officials. SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles was widely considered the frontrunner, newer, warmer, and in the world's second-largest media market. But SoFi's field dimensions were too narrow for FIFA standards, and negotiations over revenue sharing between FIFA and SoFi's owner Stan Kroenke broke down. MetLife, sitting in the shadow of the most recognizable skyline in the world, got the game instead. To prepare for it, the stadium has undergone an $80 million renovation carried out in 2 phases across 2024 and 2025, with the same firms that built it, architect Ewing Cole and contractor Skanska, returning to do the work. The main challenge was the field. NFL dimensions and FIFA dimensions don't match, so 1,740 permanent seats in the 4 corners of the lower bowl were demolished and replaced with a modular composite steel seating system that can be reconfigured depending on the sport. The dressing rooms were expanded to FIFA's updated technical standards. A new hybrid grass pitch was being laid as recently as late March 2026, with project supervisors telling contractors the window for error had officially closed. Getting to the stadium for the final will not be cheap. NJ Transit is running a special Meadowlands rail line shuttle from Secaucus Junction, with tickets priced at $150 return. Bus service from the Port Authority bus terminal in Manhattan is $80. The pricing drew immediate criticism, but NJ Transit said the costs were necessary to cover $48 million in event services and security that FIFA and other grants were not subsidizing. MetLife will host 8 matches in total during the tournament, more than any other venue. 5 group stage matches, 2 knockout rounds, and the final. The whole event is being treated as a festival, with 34 organizations across the state planning watch parties and fan zones throughout the World Cup. New York City's tourism office projected that those 8 matches could contribute around $400 million to the regional economy. On July 19th, when the 2 best teams left standing walk out onto that hybrid grass pitch in New Jersey, the eyes of an estimated 2 billion people will be watching. From the Texas heat, we move to the American South. Atlanta has always carried an outsized identity for a city its size. It is the home of Coca-Cola, CNN, and Hartsfield-Jackson, the busiest airport in the world. It hosted the 1996 Olympics, but missed out on the 1994 World Cup entirely. And in 2026, Atlanta finally gets its turn, in a building that is very different from all others on display. Mercedes-Benz Stadium opened in 2017 just west of downtown Atlanta, replacing the old Georgia Dome. Built at a cost of $1.6 billion, the most striking feature of the stadium is the roof. It is formed through 8 retractable triangular panels arranged in a pinwheel formation, inspired by the oculus of the Roman Pantheon. Each panel slides along 2 parallel rails, opening or closing the entire roof in minutes. From the air, when the panels are open, the stadium looks like a giant mechanical iris. Below the roof, a 360-degree video halo board runs the full circumference of the interior, 1,100 feet of continuous LED display wrapped around the seating bowl at the level of the upper deck. There is no other screen like it in professional sport. The stadium holds 75,000 people and is the permanent home of the Atlanta Falcons and Atlanta United FC, one of the few venues in the world purpose-built to host both NFL football and top-level soccer with equal seriousness. However, there's work to be done before the showpiece event kicks off. The stadium hosted the Copa America in June 2024, which is where the trouble started. Argentina goalkeeper Emiliano Martinez called the pitch a disaster after the tournament opener, saying the turf jumped up as players ran. Coach Lionel Scaloni was openly critical. The complaints were loud enough that Mercedes-Benz Stadium tore out the entire playing surface and rebuilt it from the ground up ahead of the World Cup. The synthetic turf was removed on January 31st, 2026. Workers went below the surface to establish a full root zone before laying natural sod, creating a natural grass field rather than the tray-style surface that drew so much criticism. Atlanta United have played 8 matches on the new surface through March and April as a live test before FIFA takes over in May. The roof will stay closed for all World Cup matches, keeping the heat out and the noise in. Mercedes-Benz Stadium will be called Atlanta Stadium during the tournament. Like all NFL stadiums, they have been asked to cover all sponsorship branding from the premises. But while every other stadium has been asked to remove multi-100-foot rooftop logos, the Mercedes-Benz Stadium gets an exception. That's because the rooftop star is patterned onto 8 panels, each weighing 500 tons and stretching 220 feet long. It is impossible to remove the branding without significant damage. So it stays. Starting next month, the stadium hosts 8 matches in total, including a semifinal on July 15th. Getting there is relatively straightforward as MARTA's blue and green lines serve the stadium directly, with 2 stations within walking distance, making Atlanta one of the most transit-accessible World Cup venues in the United States. Few places in sport carry the kind of weight that Estadio Azteca in Mexico City holds. Opened in 1966, it sits 7,200 feet above sea level, and through the years it has witnessed the peaks of football drama. It has hosted 2 World Cup finals. Both Pelé and Maradona have won a World Cup here, and more than 100,000 people watched on as Maradona scored the infamous Hand of God. Estadio Azteca is home to Club America and the Mexican national football team. It has also hosted NFL games and has even hosted some iconic concerts throughout history. And now it returns to the biggest stage once again. In the summer of 2026, it will host the World Cup for the 3rd time, making it the first ever venue in history to do that. And to prepare for the moment, Estadio Azteca is undergoing a $200 million renovation. The aim is to preserve the stadium's iconic structure while giving it the feel of a modern sporting venue. Every seat in the bowl is being replaced. The player tunnels and changing rooms are being rebuilt to FIFA standards, and massive LED screens will now cover the exterior facade. The stadium will host 5 matches in the world, including the opener on June 11th. The infrastructure changes have improved the capacity to 87,000 people, making it the largest football stadium in Latin America. However, the path to here has not been without controversy, the biggest of which has been the name change. In return for a $100 million funding, the stadium has been renamed Estadio Banorte. However, no one likes to call it that, and despite the commercial name, the stadium will be officially recognized as Mexico City Stadium by FIFA during the 2026 World Cup. Getting it finished on time has also been a race against time. The renovations have continued for the last 2 years, and in March 2026, more than 84,000 people watched as Mexico took on Portugal in a friendly match. Despite that step forward, construction continues on the exterior, with FIFA warning that the opening match could be relocated if the stadium isn't certified ready by the end of May. All these problems will be forgotten when the first ball is kicked between Mexico and South Africa, as arguably the most iconic football stadium in history writes another chapter. SoFi Stadium cost $5 billion to build. That is more than any stadium ever constructed in human history, and when you see it for the first time, the number makes sense. Opened in 2020 in Inglewood, just east of LAX, SoFi sits at the center of the Hollywood Park Entertainment Complex, a 300-acre development that includes a lake, a hotel, retail, and residential buildings rising around the stadium. The building itself has a translucent roof that covers the entire seating bowl without fully enclosing it, letting natural light flood in while shielding fans from the elements. Inside, a 70,000-seat bowl wraps tightly around the field, and a double-sided video board running the full length of the stadium hangs over the center of the pitch at 70 feet wide, visible from every seat in the house. Construction broke ground in November 2016 with the original cost estimate of $1.8 billion. By the time the doors opened in September 2020, the bill had reached $5.5 billion, making it the most expensive stadium ever built, almost 3 times the cost of the Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. The construction itself presented quite a few challenges, the biggest one being that the stadium sits directly above an earthquake fault line. On top of that, it lies close to the LAX flight path, which imposed a strict height limit on any structure built on the site. The solution to both problems was the same: dig down. The playing field sits 100 feet below the original grade, sunk into the earth in a bowl formed by one of the tallest mechanically stabilized earth walls ever constructed. Going underground kept the building below the FAA's airspace restriction and allowed the structural engineers to isolate the roof from seismic forces. During a major earthquake, the roof moves independently of the rest of the building, absorbing the lateral motion rather than transmitting it through the structure. The SoFi Stadium is the shared home of the LA Rams and LA Chargers, the only stadium in the U.S. housing 2 NFL teams. Since opening, it has already hosted 2 Super Bowls, a WrestleMania, and international soccer ties featuring the likes of Arsenal, Manchester United, and Barcelona. For the World Cup, it is operating under the name Los Angeles Stadium, with all commercial branding temporarily removed under FIFA regulations. Work has also been completed on getting the stadium ready for the World Cup, starting with major changes to the playing field. SoFi's standard field configuration is 72 yards wide, but FIFA requires 74. To close that gap, corner seating sections in the lower bowl were redesigned as a Lego-like modular structure that can be removed and stacked to free up the extra space. When it is pulled back for the World Cup, fans in those corner areas will be standing closer to the pitch than spectators at any other venue in the tournament. Beyond the field dimensions, SoFi had to replace its artificial turf with a natural grass surface, another mandatory FIFA requirement. Pitch construction began in April 2026, with groundskeepers working to establish a stable natural surface in time for FIFA's exclusive use window, which begins in mid-May. SoFi will host 8 matches in the tournament, including a quarterfinal on July 10th and the first USA home match in 32 years on June 12th against Paraguay. It will also host the 2027 Super Bowl, then transform again in 2028 to become the centerpiece of the Los Angeles Olympics, temporarily converted into the largest aquatic venue in Olympic history, a stadium that hosts the World Cup, the Super Bowl, and the Olympics within 3 years. No building in the world has that schedule. From the cutting-edge technology of Inglewood, we move to Texas, and in Texas, everything is bigger. Arlington sits in the heart of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, a sprawling mass of highways, suburbs, and ambition that is home to nearly 8 million people. And it has hosted the World Cup before in 1994, when the old Cotton Bowl drew fans from across the world into the Texas heat. 32 years later, the World Cup is back, and the stadium it is coming back to is something the Cotton Bowl could never have imagined. AT&T is arguably the most extravagant stadium in America. The stadium is often nicknamed the Death Star due to its massive, somewhat intimidating metallic architecture, appearing similar to the Star Wars space station. Opened in 2009 at a cost of $1.15 billion, the stadium seats 80,000 people under normal configuration, expandable to over 100,000 people. In 2009, it set an NFL regular season attendance record of 105,121. This should make it the biggest stadium hosting this summer's World Cup. However, once media, hospitality, and pitch modifications are taken into consideration, the official capacity will fall closer to 70,000 people, making it 8,000 lower than the MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. The most striking part of the AT&T Stadium is its 1,300-foot retractable roof, supported by massive steel arches, each weighing over 3,000 tons. The roof opens and closes, providing a sneak peek of the Texas sky. And hanging from the center of it all is a scoreboard so large it became a talking point before the building even hosted a game. When it was installed, it was the largest HD video screen in the world. The Cowboys have since upgraded it to a 160-foot wide, 72-foot tall centerpiece that dominates the interior like nothing else in professional sport. For the World Cup, it operates as Dallas Stadium, with FIFA's standard commercial rebrand in effect. It will host 9 matches at the World Cup, including the semifinal on July 14th. But while the stadium offers the biggest capacity of any venue at the event, the fans traveling to Texas might have to look out for the weather. Dallas is famously sweltering in the summer, with temperatures in June and July hitting the 100-degree mark, but feeling even hotter due to the high humidity. Sudden thunderstorms and intense rain is also commonplace. However, the stadium will operate with closed roofs and air conditioning, taking weather out of the equation entirely. Getting to the stadium will also require planning, as Arlington has no direct rail connection to Dallas or Fort Worth. The accessibility is built entirely around the car, and the only rail runs to a station about 6 miles away. Rideshare surges after matches have become notorious at this venue, so anyone without a plan will feel it. The $350 million renovation ahead of the World Cup upgraded private boxes, expanded media facilities, and rebuilt the pitch infrastructure to support a natural grass surface, a requirement FIFA enforces at every venue. The result is a stadium that was already one of the most impressive buildings in American sport, now dressed for the world's biggest stage. 9 matches, 70,000 seats, a scoreboard the size of a building, and a semi-final that will determine 2 of the 4 nations left standing. That is what Arlington gets this summer. Miami is arguably the most football-crazed city in the United States, thanks to large swaths of Latin American and Caribbean communities. Lionel Messi's move to Miami drove up that passion even more, which is why nowhere else in the tournament will the World Cup feel more at home. And Miami's Hard Rock Stadium is preparing to house all that madness. With the Miami Grand Prix coming to end in early May, the stadium now faces a 3-week race to be ready for the biggest sporting event in the world. Hard Rock Stadium has been standing in Miami Gardens since 1987, the oldest venue in this tournament by some distance. Since then, it has become one of the busier sporting venues in the country. It has hosted 6 Super Bowls, 2 World Series, and the Formula One Grand Prix on its surrounding grounds. However, this will be the first time that the city will host World Cup games, because even though the World Cup did come to Florida in 1994, the games were moved to Orlando. While the stadium is home to the Miami Dolphins of the NFL, it has a rich history of collaboration with FIFA, as it hosted 8 matches of the 2025 Club World Cup and the 2024 Copa America Final. The stadium holds 65,000 people for football, making it one of the smaller American venues at this tournament. The steep seating bowl concentrates noise in a way that larger, more spread-out stadiums cannot. And in America's most football-mad city, all 7 matches at the Hard Rock Stadium will feel like a global festival. From Miami's hyped soccer culture, let's move to a region more often associated with tech giants and coastal scenery than with international soccer. The stretch of California between San Francisco and San Jose has produced Apple, Google, Meta, Netflix, and Tesla, and reshaped the global economy in the process. It is one of the wealthiest places on Earth, and it has a football stadium that reflects exactly where it is. Levi's Stadium opened in 2014 in Santa Clara, built for the San Francisco 49ers at a cost of $1.3 billion. Since opening in 2014, the stadium has hosted over 200 major sporting events and concerts. The building earned LEED Gold certification from day one, powered partly by a rooftop solar array large enough to cover every home game. The stadium has its own rooftop farm that grows organic vegetables and herbs. In every way, the stadium is very much a product of the place that built it. What it is not is a soccer stadium by reputation. The Bay Area has a casual relationship with the sport compared to cities like Seattle or Atlanta. When FIFA came looking for a Northern California venue, Levi's was an attractive choice because of its size, infrastructure, and location. However, it is not a stadium with deep football roots. The 1994 World Cup was played at Stanford Stadium, 10 miles away, not here. This is Levi's first World Cup, but it has already hosted a major sporting event in 2026. In February, it hosted the Super Bowl, and now it prepares for the World Cup in June. Hosting two massive events within months presented an opportunity, and over the past 2 years, the stadium has gone through a $200 million renovation to be better equipped for this moment. They have overhauled the scoreboards, the premium areas, and the playing surface infrastructure in line with FIFA regulations. The stadium has a capacity of 71,000 spectators, but is mainly uncovered, leaving fans exposed to the elements. Adding a roof or shade isn't feasible, as there are building height restrictions in place because San Jose Airport is nearby. The Levi's Stadium will host 6 matches across the event. The teams coming to Santa Clara include Qatar, Switzerland, Austria, Jordan, Paraguay, and Turkey, which means that the city will act as a global cross-section of football. With so much global activity, the fans have been warned to plan their trips in advance. Levi's Stadium sits in the heart of Santa Clara, surrounded by corporate campuses. It offers limited walkability, high prices, and a chaotic route to the stadium. So for hundreds of thousands of fans making the trip, Santa Clara is a destination where logistics matter as much as the match itself. In January 2011, Marshawn Lynch took a handoff in an NFL playoff game and ran 67 yards through the New Orleans Saints defense. By the time he crossed the goal line, the noise from the crowd was so loud it registered on a seismograph operated by the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network. The moment became known as the Beastquake. It was not the first time Lumen Field had done that, and it was not the last. Located in the heart of Seattle, 100 miles south of the land border with Canada in the Pacific Northwest, this venue might offer the nicest weather in the country. Seattle Stadium is known for its horseshoe shape and an open north end providing a view of the Seattle skyline. Opened in 2002 in Seattle's Sodo district, the stadium cost $430 million and was built on the rubble of the Kingdom, the previous home of the Seahawks and Mariners, which was demolished in what remains the largest implosion of a single concrete structure in history. About half of that rubble was recycled into Lumen Field's foundations. The Seattle Stadium will be hosting 6 matches this summer, including the USA versus Australia game on June 19th. But this won't be the city's first introduction with soccer. Seattle sits in the Pacific Northwest, surrounded by mountains, water, and one of the most passionate football cultures in America. The Sounders sell out this stadium for MLS matches more consistently than almost any club in the league. This is not a city that needed the World Cup to discover football. Football was already here. The stadium has a partial roof that covers around 70% of the bowl, trapping noise inside rather than releasing it. The upper decks are steep, the stands are tight, and 69,000 people in this building create a hostile environment for any away team. So when the national team comes here, expect the noise levels to enter record territory. Washington State has invested $20 million to get the Stadium World Cup ready. The main area of concern was a temporary grass pitch laid 10 days before the 2025 Club World Cup that performed poorly at the tournament. The pitch wasn't deep enough to retain moisture, leading to criticism from the PSG boss, Luis Enrique, who said that the ball bounced like a rabbit. That artificial turf has been replaced with natural grass. Standing sections have been converted to permanent backed seats, as required by FIFA, and the media facilities are much better. The Americans play their second group game here, in the loudest stadium in the tournament. The Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia opened in 2003 as the new home for the Philadelphia Eagles. However, before a ball was kicked for the NFL, the stadium hosted a blockbuster-friendly match between Manchester United and Barcelona. While this was the stadium's introduction to European football, the region's love for the game goes way back. It was started by British immigrants in the textile industry, and the city is home to Major League Soccer's Philadelphia Union. While the Union plays just up the Delaware River, the Lincoln Financial Field does not have a home soccer team to host. However, the stadium has kept a connection with the game. Since the debut in 2003, the stadium has hosted many high-profile soccer matches, including the 2003 Women's World Cup, 2016 Copa America Centenario, and the 2025 Club World Cup. But this year, Lincoln Financial Field will see the return of football like never before. Starting this June, the Lincoln Field will look unrecognizable. No more Eagles logos, no more sponsorship signs, and the stadium itself will be called the Philadelphia Stadium for 6 weeks. During the World Cup, Philadelphia will host 5 group stage games between Brazil, France, and Croatia. But it is the 6th game that feels the biggest, a knockout game scheduled on July 4th. Coinciding with celebrations of America's 250th anniversary. While the stadium originally has a seating capacity for 67,000 fans, there will be room for 69,000 for the World Cup, and all the games are expected to be sold out. The city expects more than 1 million visitors during the campaign, and the fans can expect a few problems. However, commuting to the venue might not be one of them. Unlike other cities hosting World Cup matches, the Philadelphia Host Committee has secured an agreement for fans to receive free travel when leaving the stadium via the city's transit system. They have also announced a regular fare of under $3 to reach the venue. In a World Cup build-up dominated by the news of sky-high prices, this is a massive step to make the World Cup accessible. As things stand, the Philadelphia Stadium has all the makings of a successful World Cup venue and everything that comes with that. Boston is one of the most important cities in the USA. It is where the Boston Tea Party happened, and it was the launching ground for the American Revolutionary War. The city has also built a legacy of sporting success over the years, with the likes of Boston Celtics and the Boston Red Sox dominating their respective sports. When the FIFA World Cup comes around, Boston has a reputation to maintain, and the stadium chosen for the task is not even in Boston. The Gillette Stadium, which will now be temporarily named the Boston Stadium, sits 30 miles outside the capital of Massachusetts, in Foxboro. That's the home of the New England Patriots, a team that is responsible for some of the most iconic moments in the NFL. This is where Tom Brady played and became a part of sporting history, and perhaps there's more soccer history to be written right here. The stadium opened in 2002, replacing the former Foxboro Stadium. Completed at a cost of $325 million, it was designed as a venue that could host both American football and soccer matches, which is why it also serves as home to the New England Revolution of the MLS. While the Gillette Stadium has been a modern stadium since its inception, it has also completed a $250 million renovation to be ready for the World Cup. Beyond the changes to the playing field, there have been some significant design additions inspired by New England's maritime identity. It is a region shaped by the sea and is home to 100 historic lighthouses. The Boston Stadium has added another one. Towering above the north end is a 22-story lighthouse that comes with a 360-degree observation deck offering views of the stadium and the city. As the World Cup draws closer, Boston looks ready and has already completed a test run with a friendly game between Brazil and France. Kylian Mbappe has already scored at the venue in front of 66,000 fans, but even bigger plays are yet to be witnessed here. From Boston, we go to another open-air bowl, deliberately designed to amplify crowd noise and channel sound towards the field. Located in the Midwest, the Arrowhead Stadium is a shift away from the tech-driven modern infrastructure and presents the vibe of an old-school football venue, something the soccer fans traveling to the World Cup might appreciate. Built in 1972, it is the oldest U.S. venue at the World Cup and will host 6 matches. Being a traditional venue does not mean that the stadium lacks modern facilities. It got a massive facelift in a $375 million renovation back in 2010. Known for the acoustics, the stadium is home to 4-time Super Bowl winners, the Kansas City Chiefs, and has become a fortress for them over the years. In 2014, Chiefs fans set a Guinness World Record for the loudest noise at a sports stadium. generating 142.4 decibels, 5 more than the record they had earlier created in the same season. The Chiefs are considering moving away in the coming years. However, the Arrowhead Stadium is getting its biggest moment in the meantime. One thing that hasn't yet caught up is the tourism within Kansas City. According to the latest reports, more than 80% of the hotels haven't received the bookings expected. The projections for more than 600,000 visitors also seem to be falling short. Though it may all change when Argentina, the reigning world champions, play their opening group game here. Despite the early skepticism, the oldest stadium in the US is set to make some noise. Named the Houston Stadium for the World Cup, this is the home of the Houston Texans. In 2002, it became the first NFL venue to get a retractable roof, a feature that will come in handy as temperatures rise during the World Cup. The stadium cost $352 million to build and can accommodate more than 70,000 viewers on a match day. For the World Cup, the original fabric membrane from 2002 has been replaced entirely, along with 100 million plus renovations in line with FIFA recommendations. The stadium sits in NRG Park alongside the Astrodome, the world's first domed sports arena, which opened in 1965 and was called the 8th Wonder of the World. It is now a protected historic landmark, sitting largely empty next door, while the building that followed its legacy hosts the biggest tournament on Earth. NRG hosts the world's largest livestock show and rodeo every March, drawing 2.7 million visitors across its run, which means that the stadium has the tools to manage huge numbers coming in. The venue has hosted soccer matches before, including Mexico's win against the USA in the 2025 Gold Cup and Copa America matches in 2016 and 2024. It has also hosted 2 Super Bowls, including one where Thomas Brady triggered the biggest comeback in Super Bowl history when the Patriots came back from 28-3 down to beat the Falcons. Houston is one of the most diverse cities in America, where more than 145 languages are spoken. The city has large communities from Nigeria, Mexico, Central America, and South Asia, many of whom grew up watching football long before they arrived in Texas. The city is calling itself Soccer City for the summer, and the atmosphere is set to be amazing. The Houston Stadium will host 7 matches during the World Cup, including 5 in the group stage and a round of 16 on July 4th. Germany, Portugal, and the Netherlands all play here. The roof will be closed, the air conditioning will be running, and inside some of the biggest names in world football will show their craft. From Houston, we head back south of the border. The World Cup started in Mexico, and before it crosses into Canada for the final 2 venues, there are 2 more Mexican stadiums with stories worth telling. At just 11 years old, this is the youngest of Mexico's 3 host venues, a striking contrast to the 60-year-old Azteca hosting the opening match 180 miles to the south. Estadio BBVA sits in Monterrey, the industrial capital of Mexico, and it hosts one of the most intense derbies in world football. The 2 giants, CF Monterrey and Tigres, UANL, have created history at this venue, and the stadium is ready for more. Named Estadio Monterrey for the World Cup, the venue opened in 2015 as the new home of CF Monterrey, replacing a stadium the club had shared with rivals for 63 years. It sits in the shadow of Cerro de la Silla, an 1,800 meters high peak that dominates Monterrey's skyline and is visible from inside the stadium itself. The metal facade references the city's metallurgical history, and the shape has been compared to Monterrey's famous beer vats. The locals call it El Gigante de Acero, the steel giant. The World Cup is returning to Monterrey after 40 years. The last game here was Mexico's penalty shootout defeat by West Germany in the quarterfinals in 1986. This year, it will host 4 matches, enough for some more drama that will go down in history. Guadalajara is the cultural soul of Mexico, the birthplace of mariachi music, of tequila, of Chivas de Guadalajara, one of the most passionately supported football clubs in the country. Unlike many Mexican clubs, Chivas has a strict policy of fielding only Mexican-born players. No exceptions. In a country where football is woven into the national identity, that makes them something more than a club. they are a symbol. The stadium they play in reflects that identity in its own way. Estadio Akron opened in 2010 after 6 years of construction delays and financial difficulties stretched a project that began in 2004 well past its original completion date. Construction finally wrapped at a cost of around $149 million. The stadium lies at an altitude of 1,600 meters, and from the outside, it looks like nothing else in the whole tournament. The stadium sits upon an artificial hill and is designed to resemble a volcano. Inside, a 360-degree continuous roof covers the entire seating bowl, with red seating resembling a crater and a white roof that appears to float like a cloud above the lava. It holds 48,000 people, making it the second smallest stadium in this entire tournament. Only BMO Field in Toronto is smaller, but size hasn't limited what has happened here. The stadium hosted the 2011 Pan American Games opening and closing ceremonies. CONCACAF Champions League finals have been played here. The Copa Libertadores came through in 2010, and in June 2026, Mexico play their second group game here against South Korea, the match that will likely determine whether El Tri advance from the group stage in front of a home crowd that has been waiting for this moment for years. 4 group stage matches in total for Guadalajara. No knockout games, but the Mexico versus South Korea fixture makes it one of the most charged atmospheres in the tournament. In a city that invented mariachi and gave the world tequila, the football will be loud. From Mexico, north into Canada, the final 2 venues are the newest host nation's contribution to the tournament, and the contrast between them and everything that came before couldn't be sharper. Where America brought the stadiums that break records, Mexico brought the history, the altitude, the mountains, the soul of the game on this continent. Canada brings something different. A country that has never hosted a Men's World Cup before, 2 cities still figuring out what that means, but a quiet excitement is building up. Vancouver is one of the most beautiful cities in the world, mountains on 3 sides and ocean on the 4th. It has hosted the Winter Olympics, produced some of the most recognizable film and television in the world, and built a reputation as a place people move to and then refuse to leave. Its football culture has been quietly serious for years, built around the Vancouver Whitecaps, and a city that has consistently sold out BC Place for big matches without needing much convincing. The stadium itself has been through more transformations than any other venue in this tournament. BC Place opened in 1983 as the world's largest air-supported dome, sitting in downtown Vancouver on the north bank of Falls Creek. It hosted the 1983 Grey Cup, the 2010 Winter Olympics opening and closing ceremonies, and the 2015 Women's World Cup final. Then, the roof tore in a storm, deflating in a controlled release that exposed the entire field to the winter sky. The incident made international news and accelerated a renovation that had already been overdue. In 2011, BC Place closed for 16 months and emerged completely transformed. The air dome was replaced with a retractable cable-supported roof, the largest of its kind in the world, covered in a translucent membrane that diffuses natural light across the entire seating bowl. Vancouver Stadium is the northernmost venue at this tournament and will likely provide the coolest conditions. The stadium has infrared heating to make it more comfortable during the winter, but there is no air conditioning, so the retractable roof will remain open during the matches. The scoreboard hanging from its center is the second largest in North America, behind only AT&T Stadium in Dallas. The exterior is wrapped in LED lighting that creates a northern lights display at night, visible from across the water. Total investment in the stadium since 2010 has reached over 500 million Canadian dollars. For the World Cup, a further $150 million went into hospitality upgrades, new locker rooms, improved fan facilities, and the installation of a natural grass pitch. The stadium holds 54,500 for the tournament and will be called Vancouver Stadium. 7 matches in total, including 2 home games for the Canadian national team on June 18th and June 24th, plus a round of 32 and a round of 16. If Canada wins their group, both knockout matches are played here, meaning Vancouver could host the Canadian team all the way through to the quarterfinals on home soil. That possibility alone has made tickets for BC Place among the most sought after in the entire tournament. After 94,000-seat stadiums in Texas, billion-dollar roofs in Los Angeles, and the most historic football ground on earth in Mexico City, the World Cup ends its journey in Toronto, at a stadium that holds 30,000 people at a time, making it the smallest venue of the World Cup. BMO Field opened in 2007 as the home of Toronto FC, built specifically for football at a cost of $62 million on the grounds of Exhibition Place, a historic park and fairground on the western shore of Lake Ontario. It was the first soccer-specific stadium ever built in Canada. Toronto FC was a new MLS expansion team. The stadium was modest, intimate, and deliberately designed to put fans as close to the pitch as possible. That was the point. In a city still growing its football culture, the intimacy was the atmosphere. It worked. Toronto FC went on to become one of the most supported clubs in MLS, winning the league title in 2017 and developing a fan base passionate enough to fill the stadium consistently. BMO Field expanded from its original 20,000 capacity to 30,000 over the years, and the atmosphere it generates for big matches has surprised visitors who expected something more reserved from a Canadian football crowd. Then the World Cup came calling. The problem was straightforward. FIFA requires a minimum capacity of 45,000 for World Cup venues. BMO Field had 30,000. The solution was expensive. The city of Toronto committed $132.9 million to add 2 temporary stands built at the north and south ends, adding 17,736 seats and bringing the total to 45,736. New LED video boards, upgraded locker rooms, a rooftop patio for 1,000 fans, and a new center field lounge were added as permanent improvements that remain after the tournament. Construction ran in 2 phases between December 2024 and March 2026, with Toronto FC and the Argonauts playing through both phases without interruption. The result is the smallest stadium in the tournament, in the only soccer-specific venue among all 16 World Cup hosts across 3 countries. Every other stadium was built primarily for another sport. BMO Field was built for this one. 6 matches are scheduled in Toronto, including Canada's opening game against Bosnia and Herzegovina on June 12th, the first ever Men's World Cup match played on Canadian soil. The World Cup that began in the most iconic football stadium on Earth at 7,200 feet in Mexico City ends its journey here, on the shores of Lake Ontario, in the smallest venue in the competition. 45,000 people, natural grass, and a country playing its first ever home match in the Men's World Cup. Are you excited for the 2026 World Cup? And which country will turn out to be the most memorable host? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, check out our video on Nevada's biggest mega projects in 2026, which includes plans for some massive new stadiums in Vegas. Keep following SIGNUM, and we will see you in the next video.